Hello, this is Jerry Morton. Welcome to my podcast series titled Finding My Way, a memoir by Jerry Morton. This is podcast 74, If You Believe It. Podcast 74, If You Believe It, relates how one's belief system often determines the way we interpret the meaning of agreed upon facts. A student suspended from his public school for a long period of time explains why he thinks he was suspended while he was attending an alternative school around 1989. Podcast 74, If You Believe It. The last several podcasts have included references to the positive reinforcement strategy, RAID, R-A-I-D, developed by Charles Mattson, Jr. For those interested in learning more about the RAID system and how we implemented it, allow me to refer you to the brief paper Dr. Ralph Bailey and I wrote to serve as a guide to teachers in the Pinellas County school system. You can access the paper, RAID, a formula for positive classroom management, at the ERIC, E-R-I-C, website. Sometime in the 1980s, I was visiting in St. Petersburg, Florida. While there, Ralph Bailey told me that the Florida State Department of Education was requiring teachers who had trouble with their classroom management strategies to read and implement the RAID paper. I provide a more detailed description of the implementation of the RAID system that was used in an alternative school for 7th through 12th graders who had been expelled from their schools for extended periods of time in a book Rosa Kennedy and I wrote. I was the director of the school for 5.5 years in the late 1980s. The book, A School for Healing, Alternative Strategies for Teaching at-Risk Students, was published in 1999 by Peter Lang Publishing. The book details success of the positive reinforcement strategies as well as the other strategies used by the staff to assist the students in being successful in their academic studies and social interactions. Becoming the director of the alternative school provided me with the opportunity to implement the many strategies I had learned over the years. Those strategies included having the school staff strive to be positive with the students 80% of the time, maintaining the emotional health of the teaching staff, implementing a particular management style for decision-making that included the staff and the students, engaging artists, college and graduate students, higher education faculty members, volunteers, and others from the adult community surrounding the school. The School for Healing did not use punishment as an important behavioral control tool. Of course, there were natural consequences attached to socially inappropriate behaviors. A key focus of the staffs was in understanding the perception the young people had of various situations. That perception reflected the student's belief system. It was assumed that every young person perceived him or herself as justified in their reaction to an unfair situation. The oft-quoted phrase, "If you believe it, you have made it true for you," was the key concept used by the staff in assisting the students to gain control of their reactions to others. I had learned the importance of the belief systems held by others through my work in the Army and while working with teachers using Dr. Brody's developmental play strategies, as described in the last podcast. This was considered such an important focus of the school that it was embedded in the description of the book on its cover. A School for Healing: Alternative Strategies for Teaching at-Risk Students describes an alternative school that dealt with students who were expelled or suspended from public school and who perceived themselves as victims of injustice. It was assumed that they misinterpreted the facts of various situations or chose inappropriate strategies to correct real injustices. The task of the school was to help the students learn multiple perspectives for interpreting the actions of others and to teach them more appropriate ways of resolving injustices. The success of these combined approaches at the school are documented in the School for Healing book. That includes reports of the research conducted about the school, the various awards the school received, the art awards earned by many of the students, and the outstanding individual and group successes earned by many of the students. Here is a story from the School for Healing book that provides an example of the power of a student's belief in dictating his behavior and the alternative school's approach to assisting the student to begin to change his belief about the cause of his anger. I would often enter one of the alternative school's classrooms and just sit with the students while they were working on their assignments. It so happened that one afternoon I was sitting beside a young man of about 15. He had been attending the school for several weeks. During that time, I had observed him pleasantly interacting with his educators and fellow students. Since it was my policy to not review a student's record to determine why he or she had been suspended or expelled from the regular school program, I didn't know why he had been suspended. It was the school's committee of staff members who reviewed those records to determine which teacher had the most appropriate teaching style that best met the students' learning needs. I didn't review those records to avoid being prejudiced in perceiving each student as a valued person who had far more positive characteristics than disruptive ones. Here's how I remember my conversation with the young man. When the student had finished his seat work and was putting his papers away, I quietly said, "I really appreciate how considerate you are to your classmates, your teacher, the guidance counselor, and the people working in the cafeteria." "Thanks. That's just me." "I understand that. What I don't understand is how a nice person like you could get suspended from school." "It was a teacher. She hated me. She was always on my case. I held it together as long as I could, but then what she did was just too much. I let her know." "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I don't understand. How did she come to hate you?" "She had it in for me from day one. Last year I failed math. I just can't do it. So this first day of school, my bus is late. I get there late. I walk into her math class late. As I'm walking in to find a seat, she says to me, right out loud in front of everybody, 'Where's your book?' I think, what book? Nobody gave me a book. What's going on? I got here late and nobody gave me a book." I just shrug. As I'm sitting down, she shouts out, "How do you expect to learn without a book?" What can I say? I just shrug. Then she tells the class she wants students to go to the blackboard and solve the problems on it. They're all problems we are supposed to have learned to work last year. She starts pointing to students to go to the board. Then she points to me and points to one of the problems. She is trying to embarrass me even more. Quietly, I ask, "What do you mean?" She knows I can't solve the problem. She knows I failed math last year. She spent the whole summer reviewing my math grades and all. She is just sending me up there to make a fool of myself. Well, the next day I go to her class without a book. No one has given me a math book. I don't know where they give them out. Besides, you have to go straight to class when you get to school. You can't just be wandering around, you know. As soon as I sit down, she glares at me and she says, "Where's your book?" She knows no one has given me a book. She's just trying to embarrass me even more. This kind of stuff goes on for weeks and weeks. She gives everyone homework problems to do every night. Of course, I don't do any. I can't. I don't know how. I failed math last year. After a while, she starts asking me, "Where's your homework?" Every morning. I just look at her. Duh! And she thinks I'm the stupid one. After that silly question, she always says, "How do you expect to learn if you don't try?" Duh! What can I say? One day, she passes out the sheet of math problems with problems on it I think I can answer. I work on it that night. It takes a while. My little brother won't turn down the TV, and my big sister and mom keep arguing, but I get it done. I think I've got all 10 of them. The next morning, first thing when I walk into the classroom, I lay the assignment on her desk. She just looks at me with her mouth open for a few seconds, and then she says, "It's a miracle." I go back to my seat. She calls up some students to solve the homework problems on the board. You know, the ones who always get them right, while she grades the papers. When she hands them back before going over the problems on the board, I see that I missed 4 of them. I got a D on my homework, but I can see that she cheated me. 2 of the problems she scored wrong were right. I can see the correct answers on the blackboard. She cheated me. She hates me so much that she has to cheat me. Well, that was it. I let her know that she had cheated me, and they kicked me out of school. After a pause, I calmly state, "That was so unjust. I'm so sorry that happened to you. How did you let her know that she cheated you?" I grabbed my paper and I ran up to her there, sitting at that desk, and shoved the paper in her face and yelled, "Hey, you bitch, you cheated me!" That's how I got here. Well, you know, in this school we always say everyone thinks they're right. They think they are justified in their behavior, and it's the other person that's wrong. So help me think about how this teacher could think that she was right. She thinks she was the person who was wrong. There's no way she could think. She could not think she was right. She cheated me. Okay, I understand. Just let me imagine a way she could think she was right and you were wrong. No, there's no way. Just let me make something up. I have no way of knowing what she was really thinking. Just let me try. After a long pause, he said, Okay. Well, let's say you were right. Let's say she did study your math record over the summer. Let's say she studied your whole school record over the summer and she said to herself, He's smart. He has shown that he can learn some of the math. He has done well in a couple of his other classes. He can learn. I don't know why he's having trouble in math. I'm going to make him my special project for the year. He's going to be the one student that I can turn around and teach him math. I can do this for him. I will do this for him. Oh my gosh, the first day of class and he comes into class late and without his book. Where's your book? How do you expect to learn without your book? She thinks to herself, I've got to motivate him. I've got to get him to want to learn his math. Oh, no, it's the second day of school and he still doesn't bring his math book. I have to motivate him. Where's your book? I will keep asking him. I will keep asking him that until he brings in his book. He has to have his book. Oh, no, he won't even try to bring in his homework. I'll keep asking him about it. I won't give up on him. I know he can learn. He can be a good math student. He's my special project. I can't give up. At last, he's brought in his homework. I am so happy. I'm beginning to reach him. I am so happy I say to him, It's a miracle. He doesn't say thank you or anything. He just goes back to his seat. Oh, I've got to quickly grade these papers and get them back to the kids before they finish solving all the problems on the board. I am so tired. It's hard to stay focused on grading these papers. Last night our daughter wrecked a car. I was so frightened for it. It was totaled. Most of the night was spent with her getting the car towed to a garage, dealing with the insurance agents. It was a mess. Everybody's okay. I'm so tired and got to hurry up and finish grading these papers. Done. The papers are graded. I get them recorded and now they're passing them back to the students. What? What is this? Here he comes rushing up to my desk. He's mad. His face is red. He shoves his homework in my face and screams, Hey, you bitch! You cheated me! That's the thanks I get for dedicating myself to motivating him, for helping him succeed in math. The young man stares at me for a few seconds, then says, If that was the case, then she just made a mistake in how to help me. Yeah, that's the point, isn't it?